The judge's voice moved slowly through the courtroom, each word sounding like she was trying to verify them as they left her mouth. Mr. Jensen, are you telling this court the HOA has built an entire cul-de-sac on your land? You could have heard a single dust mote fall. The projector hummed behind her, then clicked, washing the wall with the county survey. Thick red boundary lines cut across the screen like crime scene tape. Whole chunks of Evergreen Meadows' 3 pristine houses, a playground polished to a plastic shine, and their proud little gazebo were shaded in an angry red. Inside that red, stamped in bold, it read, Property of N. Jensen. At the plaintiff's table, HOA President Marley Yates, drained from peach to hospital paper white. That can't be right, she whispered. Our builder, our developer, he showed us. The judge raised her hand without looking at her. Ma'am, sit down. You'll speak when spoken to. I sat at the defense table in worn jeans, a flannel shirt with a missing button, and work boots still holding a thin crust of dust from the property I'd left that morning. I had shaved, technically, though the effort didn't fool anyone. If you'd lined up every person in the room and asked which one owned $250,000 of disputed real estate, I would have come in dead last. I looked like someone who rewired tractors in exchange for beer and fresh eggs. I nodded once at the judge, then at the map glowing behind her. So, I said, calm as a man reading a grocery list, when they told me my barn was encroaching on HOA property. Turns out the only thing encroaching was their entire neighborhood. But before the courtrooms and the maps and the smug nodding, I hadn't been looking for a fight. I just needed a barn. A simple barn, somewhere to keep tools from rusting overnight, and raccoons from reorganizing my belongings as if they were planning to file a joint tax return. My 10 acres sat on the edge of Cedar Hollow, a town losing its identity one beige subdivision at a time. My grandfather's parcel was one of the last untouched pieces of pasture land, a line of old oaks, a farmhouse I'd rebuilt with my own hands over the years. Evergreen Meadows sprouted beside it later, all matching houses lined up like pressed cookies. They slapped in a gate, installed a sign with a pine tree graphic, even though not a single evergreen stood within a mile, and called it luxury. Fine by me. The HOA folks got their little kingdom of matching mailboxes, and I kept my slice of old Cedar Hollow. I worked as a freelance mechanic and fabricated custom welding jobs for local artists who wanted their sculptures to look rustic but intentional. A barn wasn't a luxury for me. It was survival, a workshop, storage, maybe even a little space for my 2 elderly goats who spent most of their days judging me. I pulled the permits. I double-checked the survey my grandfather kept in a fireproof safe. Everything lined up perfectly. Hired a crew. Ordered lumber. The day the first post hole got dug, I stood on my porch with a mug of coffee, minding my own business. Then I heard heels. Not boots. Not sneakers, heels. On my field. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me? I turned, and there she came striding across my property like she was charging a toll for each blade of grass. Blonde bob, haircut sharp as a knife, sunglasses that probably cost more than my first car, and a badge clipped to her blouse that gleamed in the sun. Evergreen Meadows HOA President, Marley Yates. Perfect, you can't build that, she said immediately, pointing at the emerging frame like it had insulted her family. That structure violates HOA guidelines. Good thing, I said, sipping coffee, I don't live in your HOA. She laughed, a bright rehearsed laugh that didn't match her eyes. All these lots are part of the Evergreen Meadows planned community. No, I replied, they're not. My family's owned this land since before your planned community was still a doodle on a developer's napkin. County records say otherwise, Marley said, but there was a crack in her smile. Our developer showed us the boundaries. This area, she waved dramatically at my field, is designated for future community amenities. Future amenities on my land, I said. You're naming things that don't belong to you. She rummaged through an oversized tote, pulled out a folder thick enough to stun a mule, and held it out like she was about to issue me a fine and a scented candle. You're required to submit all plans to the Architectural Review Committee. Outbuildings must match community aesthetics. Neutral colors, no visible agricultural structures, no workshops. No ma'am, I cut in, I'm building a barn, not a shopping mall. Marley frowned as if I'd personally offended her landscaping budget. You're not understanding. Your barn is within Evergreen Meadows. I pointed toward my property line. See that fence? My grandfather put that there 30 years ago. It hasn't moved an inch. Your HOA stops on the other side. Her lips tightened. We'll be in touch. She was, unfortunately. The next morning, my email lit up with a message from HOA board at evergreenmeadows.com. Dear resident, you are in violation of the Evergreen Meadows covenants. I hit reply. I am not, nor have I ever been, a resident of Evergreen Meadows. Your HOA has no authority on my property. Do not trespass again. They did not receive that well. Suddenly, Marley was photo-documenting every angle of my lot like she was preparing for a coffee table book titled Scenes of Crime. The barn, dog walkers, lingered near my fence, staring like they expected the barn to explode. A bright orange stopwork notice appeared zip-tied to my gate one morning. I removed it, folded it, and placed it in a folder labeled Evidence. Marley escalated further. She called the county, claimed I lacked permits. Inspector came, checked, nodded, left. She called animal control, claimed I had illegal livestock. The officer met my goats, shrugged, left out. She even tried convincing delivery drivers my road was private HOA access. So I set up cameras and kept building. Then came the certified letter thick enough to use as a doorstop. Evergreen Meadows HOA was suing me for encroachment. Their solution: tear down the barn, restore the land, and hand that portion of property to them as community green space. They wanted me to gift them my land. I laughed for a full minute. Then I called a lawyer. Her name was Gina Park, sharp as a blade, cool as iced tea, and deadly in a courtroom. She skimmed the lawsuit, raised one eyebrow, and said, "This is either a colossal misunderstanding or one of the dumbest power grabs I've ever seen." I gave her everything. Old survey, deed, tax records, permits, maps. Gina lined up the HOA map next to the county's official boundaries. She grew quiet. "These don't match," she said. "You mean the developer cut corners?" I asked. "Doesn't look malicious," she replied, "just sloppy. Their plat extends into your land. They assumed the lines were where they wanted them, so she hired a new surveyor to verify. A guy with a high-tech GPS rig came out and walked the property for hours, planting neon flags along the true boundaries. His face got tighter every time he checked the map. "Something wrong?" I asked eventually. He tapped a flag resting near my old fence line. "According to the county and your deed, your land doesn't stop at this fence." My stomach twisted. "How far does it go?" He turned toward Evergreen Meadows, those smug rows of identical homes. "You see that cul-de-sac?" Baki asked. "Half of it is on your parcel, and those 3 houses there, partially built on your land." I just stared. "Say that again." "The developer misplatted the subdivision. Legally, those homes sit on ground that belongs to you." By the time court rolled around, Marley arrived in a blazer, pearls, and an entire rainbow of color-coded binders. She brought glossy brochures proclaiming Evergreen Meadows as a premier gated lifestyle community, like she was selling luxury timeshares instead of invading someone's property. I showed up in cleaner jeans and a new folder. Their attorney went first. He made a dramatic speech about community, harmony, and the fragile feng shui of cookie-cutter homes. Marley dabbed her eyes when she remembered to. They proudly unveiled their exhibit, the developer's plat map extending Evergreen Meadows like a blob across half my acreage. Then Gina stood. She clicked on the projector. The county-certified survey illuminated the room with all the subtlety of a fire alarm. There it was, my grandfather's land outlined with perfect accuracy, and overlaid on top. Evergreen Meadows, lots dangling halfway into my property like they'd been painted by a drunk cartographer. The judge leaned forward. "Explain this." Gina did. Brilliantly, ruthlessly. The farm parcel predated the subdivision. It had never been split. The developer's plat was wrong. The county records were still correct. And the homes in 7, 8, and 9 were sitting on land that legally belonged to me. "So whose land are those houses standing on?" the judge asked. As Gina said simply. You could feel the oxygen leave the room. The HOA attorney muttered about clerical error. Gina cut him off. "The fault lay with the developer, not me, not the county, not the surveyor. Them." "Did the HOA ever verify its boundaries with an independent survey?" the judge asked. Marley's mouth opened and closed like a malfunctioning puppet. "So that's a no," the judge concluded. 2 weeks later, the ruling came down. It wasn't gentle. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. The HOA had no jurisdiction over my land. The barn was legal and fully within my property. 3 houses and portions of the HOA's common area sat on my parcel, and the HOA was ordered to cover my legal bills and survey fees. Then came the bombshell. As for the encroachments, the judge read, the parties may pursue either a purchase of the encroached land, or, failing that, removal or modification of structures. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "Our houses." And the judge wasn't finished. Because of the HOA's harassment, trespassing, fraudulent notices, attempts to coerce land transfer, the court issued a cease and desist. They were barred from contacting me directly ever again. Outside, HOA board members huddled in panic. Homeowners looked at me like I'd stolen gravity from under their feet. Gina just smiled. "Now you get to set the price." The news spread fast. Local papers, Facebook groups, even a segment on the evening news. HOA sues man over barn, discovers neighborhood is on his land. Evergreen Meadows became a meme. Real estate agents begged clients not to Google it. Negotiations dragged. Their first offer was laughable pittance, wrapped in phrases like community goodwill. I countered with a figure that made their treasurer grip the table. Eventually, the 3 affected homeowners banded together. They weren't mad at me, they were furious at the HOA and the developer. They purchased perpetual easements for the portions of their houses on my land. The HOA bought a smaller easement for their playground and walking path, plus paid a yearly maintenance fee. The developer, under threat of lawsuits from every direction, paid out a massive settlement. Most of it flowed directly to me. In that settlement, buried near the end, was a paragraph I insisted be included. Evergreen Meadows HOA acknowledges it, has no authority, jurisdiction, or enforcement rights over the property of Mr. Noah Jensen, nor may it attempt to annex or claim said property in the future. Marley signed at last. By then, she was no longer HOA president. A special meeting had been called. The minutes leaked later. The votes weren't close. Remove Marley Yates as president, 39-1. Bar her from future board positions, passed. Require independent surveys for future land claims, passed. Marley sat stiffly, clutching her binder as the votes were read, her face draining of all expression. I was protecting our community, she whispered. No one answered. Not one. She walked out alone, the badge still pinned to her blazer, but the authority it represented gone like it had never existed at all.